Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So with this video I combined week 4 and 5 because for week 4 I realized I didn't get any type of footage at all except for a couple of pictures by the end of the week and one video from when we were exploring. So mostly I spent the whole week with yielding his fore and hindquarters from the saddle, practicing circles that are small in size to large size until we were able to move around the arena. And I also started whistle training, and what I mean by that is I trained him to come to me when I whistle, which is something that I just feel like is fun to do, and it's just a little trick that I like. So here's a video from when we went and explored. He decided to eat a thorn bush, but thankfully he was fine. Just some pictures. I did just walk him around, and then I decided to hop on him, and of course he does fine. I really like to ride bareback, so I want him to be used to me in the saddle and bareback. So that was pretty much week 4, pretty simple and kind of repetitive anyways. That's a good boy. Good boy. So here, I'm riding bareback again. I honestly think that he does a lot better when I'm not in the saddle, but this is also my first time using spurs. I don't tap hard, I tap very light, and I think that was a lot of my problem when I had him in the saddle, because I don't think I was tapping hard enough, or maybe I just didn't have enough leverage to reach. So I'm just using what they call English spurs. They're dull and they're rounded at the very end, so there's nothing sharp or anything touching him. It's just enough to be pinpointed so that he can feel it better. And he does so well. As you see, he turns great. He's very light. He's very easy to control in this state. And I'm only riding him at a halter. So he honestly does horrible in a bit. I don't know if it just pulls funny or if he just really is uncomfortable with it. I'm okay with riding him in just a hackamore or a halter. I actually prefer to not put a bit in his mouth because I would not like it if somebody was pulling on my mouth either. And he just does so well without it, so I don't really need to have anything in his mouth in order to control him. He does really well without it. So basically my main thing with this session is I was working on more like making his turns better, and he is doing really well. So all I do is I like to use leg pressure the most. I don't really like to pull on the reins. I want to get him to a point where I can neck rein him, but that'll just probably happen later. So if I want him to turn a little sharp and more yield his hindquarters, I'll put my foot back and I'll tap farther back on his rib cage. And he responds really well to that. He does seem to get it. And if I want to just do a simple turn, I just press my calf like up against him right where my leg should be resting, rather than moving it forward or a little bit back. I try to keep it in that same general vicinity. And he caught on really quick to it, which I was really happy about. And this riding session was actually pretty good, and we had a really good day that day. Even with all the wind blowing, he didn't spook, he didn't lose focus on me. He listened to me when I asked him to back up, when I asked him to move. He did get a little frustrated because he wanted to go further out, but I wanted to keep him in a more controlled location rather than just letting him go all over the place, because he needs to understand that I am in control and that I'm going to be telling him where to go. And I do take him out further sometimes as long as he listens to me before. I reward him with getting to go where he wants to go as long as he listens to what I tell him to do first. So I do reward him in that way. So here he got a little stuck. Well, not really stuck, just lazy. Um, I just continue with my pressure. I do not apply more pressure because I don't want to necessarily hurt him and I don't want to be aggressive about it. And he will eventually do what I ask as long as I'm consistent, because he's like, okay, that's getting annoying. I'll just move and give you an answer versus just stand there and like being poked in the side. And I prefer that over a horse that decides to crow hop or buck. So thankfully, he has not tried to buck me off yet, and he's done really well. Good boy, Bowen. So today we did another small trail ride. There is a kind of like a dirt track in the back of this boarding facility where there's like other pastures, and we just went back there and took a couple pictures, walked around for a little bit. My husband rode his horse, Amaziah, and it went pretty well. This was one of the first times that I actually got to go out into an open area, like more open, and got to ride him and be in full control of him, which was another step forward. It's now day 32. We're still cleaning up our turns, working on backing up and yielding the hindquarters still, which he's doing better. The reason we're still cleaning up simple turns is because he will sometimes over exaggerate them still, rather than just doing little turns at a time or not such dramatic turns, because sometimes he'll just completely spin around, or he'll he just over exaggerates with his turn sometimes. But that comes when teaching a horse how to be ridden and how to take commands from somebody on top. see how much cleaner he was able to step when I asked him to yield his hindquarters? That is what I have been working on with him a lot, and he really has cleaned his steps up quite a bit. When you're on top, it's kind of hard to tell how well he's crossing his legs, but as long as that foot in the front stays pivoted, I know that he's at least trying, and I will always reward that because then he knows what I'm asking him to do, and he'll eventually just get better and better at it. I left this clip in because I do like to give Bowen a lot of love in between our sessions, and also whenever he does really well or he gives me the response I'm looking for, I will always stop, give him a break, and I will just like pet him, tell him he's good, and that sort of reward. Sometimes I'll have treats, but I try not to do too much with the treats because sometimes he'll get really pushy. So, but it's just important to reward them in any way.
That's so beautiful.
So, today I am getting Bowen into a trot because now it's time to start going up into gait since he's gotten so well with his turning. He's finally learned the cues really well. It's time to move up in gaits. That way, when it comes time, I can start teaching him the barrel pattern and probably just use him for barrel racing just for fun. I'm probably not going to do any like serious competing. It's just something that I want to do with him because he is a fast little horse. Um, and he's able to make those quick turns, so I do think that he'd be good for that. So I have my husband with the whip because I wasn't sure that Bowen would understand what I was asking of him. So I just have him there so that when I ask Bowen to trot, if he doesn't respond soon enough, my husband is just gonna smack the ground to get him to understand that I want him to trot, or to just apply minimal pressure, like as you see. This isn't really a trot that he's doing right now. It's more of like a little hop when he walks. He's just unsure of what I'm asking, but he is trying, and that's all that matters.
Such a weird trot. He really does.
He didn't even try. He looks like he's walking right now. He's walking. He wasn't trying. Wanna try again? I keep waving it behind him so he doesn't stop. When you tell him to stop, I'll stop waving.
Once I was able to keep him in a trot for at least a full lap, I did give him a break. Like I said in an earlier video, this is just how I reward him. Now that I was able to comfortably get Bowen into a trot, I decided that it would be good to just go ahead and get him into a lope, at least to see how he would do. And yes, throughout this video, I'm holding on to the saddle horn because I'm not sure just quite how he's going to react to going faster. Some horses, when you ask them to go into a trot, they're like, okay, whatever, like, I'll do it. But sometimes when you ask them to lope, they're like, oh, now that's too much, and then they try to throw you off because they don't want to do it. Thankfully, Bowen hasn't really had that personality, much less has he had the intention to buck or crow hop or try to rear or throw you or anything. It's still just a precaution because any horse can buck. Even though Bowen is on the much calmer side, I still have that precaution in my mind that he might still take that chance and he might buck all of a sudden. So that's why I'm holding on to the saddle horn, also because I'm not wearing a helmet.
Antelope, right? Come on. Right there. One more. Come on.
Oh my goodness.
You want antelope, right? Come on. Come on. Right there. One more. Come on.
Whoa.
Whoa.
So I did have to keep using my husband in order to get him into a lope, which is fine because Bowen's still learning. But I only loped him twice because I just wanted him to get the trend that when I kiss, when I make that kissing sound, that I want him to lope. And he did really well. I'm glad that he didn't buck. I rode horribly, but the point is that he did really well and that he did what I asked him to. And I was really happy with him that day. We made a lot of progress and he did really good. And he was good with the transition from going fast to slow too. So like going from a lope to a trot, and that's also really good. And then he's also fine with going from a trot to a walk, and you know, that's exactly what we want and need. Well, that is all the training we did for this week. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't seen the other videos before this, make sure to go back to my page, subscribe, and definitely watch this Bowen series. He has come a long way. Thank you guys.